Good morning, humans, and welcome to the Daily Huddle. My name is Tara Heaton, and I am typically a host on Tuesdays. But today I am pitch hitting for Keith, and we have a wonderful guest, Paul Zohav, with us. And I think that we are all going to learn something from this conversation. Let me tell you a little bit about Paul, and then we're going to get started. Paul Zohav brings a wealth of experience to marriage and communication. With a master's degree in counseling from the University of Virginia, Paul is academically skilled, professionally experienced, and compassionate. Today, with well over 20 years of professional experience as a chaplain and domestic violence counselor, he devotes himself to supporting couples and families through marriage and communication coaching from Tucson, Arizona. Beyond his professional achievements, Paul's expertise is enriched by his 25-year marriage to his beloved wife, Rita. Welcome, Paul. We are so honored to have you here.
Thank you. By the way, next week will be 26 years.
Oh my goodness, that is something to celebrate.
Mhm.
Um, we are going to talk today about wanting stronger relationships. And before we dive into you talk about we're going to start with a three-letter word that's going to help us to strengthen relationships. I want us to all take a moment to embrace something.
Mhm.
Relationships always have room to grow. So I like to really dig into this type of conversation with a sense of curiosity and a yearning to grow, because if relationships aren't growing stronger, then they are stagnating, which causes them to weaken. So let's lock arms together and learn from Paul. So tell us about growing stronger relationships with a three-letter word.
Well, yesterday, my personality type is a person who looks for answers.
Mhm.
INTP, for those who know Myers-Briggs. And I was thinking about um, generative language, which is language we use that cannot be answered from the past. What would be available if we were to XYZ? You can't tell a story about the past. You can only leap into the future with thought and thinking. And then it something hit me. And AND, that three-letter word. First of all, it's a connector.
Mhm.
Peanut butter and jelly, boys and girls, cats and dogs. So it connects, objects, let's say. It also connects thought.
Mhm.
Purple is good, and blue would be good too. And then all of a sudden, and creates future. Before, when you have a no, someone says no, there's very limited future, or at least your future of an argument, or feeling disappointed or frustrated or irritated or annoyed. So no cuts off future and doesn't encourage thinking. It might encourage upset. And when you put an and next to it, all of a sudden there's a whole space to create with. And let's just take another route. Let's think about this. Let's create a time for which we can sit down and talk. All of a sudden, the future opened up with and. I'm still kind of vibrating from that. And, um, and in relationships, you know, when you're having a conversation with anybody, someone says, "How about we do this?" They go, "No," which could be the end of the story. Or you could say, and then you have a brand new story. And um, I had a couple, he was a bit younger than I am, and he was convinced that he was unfixable. He was a long held belief that he was unfixable.
Mm.
And I said, and how about taking on a new interpretation of, I have a few things left to learn.
Mm.
And in that interpretation was power and connection to his spouse. Instead of being locked in a rather small room of, I'm unfixable, he now lives a life, well, I could still learn a few more things. And that's brand new space for him. It was enlivening. And Um, when I coach some of the couples, you know, I said, how about we do Chinese food tonight? And they go, no. And we could do, Mexican food. So they went from no future to future with all it was A&D. It's just remarkable how and creates future. That's the thought that's still reverberating in my headspace.
I love that. Are most of your clients, do you, in all the personality profiles that I've studied, we can kind of see that some people have a personality profile naturally, genetically, that are thinking in the present, and some are more future thinking naturally. Is this harder for people that aren't naturally future thinkers?
When their marriage is at stake,
Hmm.
when divorce is a possibility, when there's a crossroads in their relationship, um, and they don't want to be divorced. They may even have moved apart already. Happens often. They don't want to stay that way, and there's kids involved. And there's that word. They're open to new possibility. And um, a couple came to me, and he had invited her to hop on the motorcycle to go to the nearest county park, and she said no. And they got in an argument. Listen to all these ands, by the way. Um, and he goes, and I need half an hour to finish my hair. Then I could be ready to go. With an and, they get to the park. Without the and, they came to me. It's just, and it's remarkable. Another word we don't want to embrace is the word but. But maybe in the ancient times, well, for me anyways, it would be but having said that,
Right, right,
right?
right.
But now, without the having said that, acknowledging what went before, it's become kind of a no. It's
Hmm.
like whatever you say with before the but kind of disappears. I understand your point of view, but here's mine.
Yes, yes, yes. I used to have a husband who would apologize and then say, but. Well, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, but. And I'm thinking every time he said it, I thought, you're not sorry.
It's it's it it's kind of like a magic etch a sketch. Whatever you say before the but go gone.
I like that. Yes,
Uh,
absolutely.
and when you add the word yes, you get a whole bunch of new gifts to
Mhm.
unwrap underneath the Christmas tree. We tend to react. I say something to my spouse, she reacts. She says something to me, I tend to react. It seems to be a kind of instant reactivity. And there's that word again. Just listen to all the ands. It causes flow
Mhm.
and connects you to the next thought. Um, and this is a true story. He says, how about we go to the county park? She goes, yes. And I need a half an hour to finish my hair. That's a true story. And that got them to the park. Then there's yes, and then we'll add it to an and. When in human relationships, we don't get to react. Reacting is not intelligent. It's a reaction, which is perfectly appropriate when the light turns red.
Yes,
Stop.
yes.
Do not stop and think about it. Just stop. And
Hmm.
in human relationships, I'm just counting the ands. We're obliged to pause, reflect, and choose. So the first thing when someone says anything, you say yes, and you're connected. You're listening to what they're saying to you. They know they've been heard, which is a gift all by itself, because many of us live in a world where no one listens to us. And we then have an and to follow it, and let's take some time and talk about it. Yes. And let's pick a good time to sit down and talk. And it allows us to steer into a brand new future. So we have connection, listening, they've been heard, we've established a connection. You don't have to be in the rabbit hole longer than it takes to say, and And most recently, I stumbled across and as a first aid for anger. Because occasionally we run into people who have anger management program problems, quote unquote. Well, someone comes up to you and says, I think, you're a terrible person or something more unhappy. And you could explain yourself or you could defend, but it's really a waste of time because they're not listening. When they're angry, their intelligence is kind of like gone. They're
Mhm.
just angry. So they're not listening. So why bother explaining yourself or defending? Well, what you get to do now is go, and I hear you. I'll make a cup of coffee and I'll listen to everything you have to say. They get to hold up all the negativity all by themselves, which is exhausting, you know? And they go, what do you mean by that? And I hear you. I'd like to know more about that. And about after three ands, they kind of peter out. And caveat, if they are really super duper angry and they start following you around the room, insisting that you listen to them, that's the time to take a time out, take a break, leave, or call 911. Safety is an issue, but ordinary run-of-the-mill anger can be usually dealt with. And I hear you, which, wow, someone's listening. How about that? What an idea. So, and I hear you. Let's sit down and talk. And let's pick a time on the calendar. We'll sit down and I'll hear everything you have to say. I'm listening. And as a first aid for anger. So,
I gotta tell you, I'm struggling with this a little bit. Like I'm not seeing the help me with this. I'm not seeing the importance of the word and in most of these conversations. For example, um, someone says, I'm angry, or whatever the anger is, and I hear you. What is the point in saying and? Like, explain, why not just
well,
say, I hear
I would,
you?
I would start with it. Yes, you get the benefits of the yes.
Mhm.
Connection. I'm listening. You're being heard. Yes. And let's sit down and talk about it. So the yes establishes a vital connection. They
I get
know,
that I feel that.
and the and lets you steer. One of my peeves of the moment is, and I think about this. We live in a world where teenagers feel obligated to say yes when they mean no.
Okay.
They want their relationship. They want to be popular. They want to be accepted. They want to be in love. That's what teenagers do. And their body is militating for pregnancy. We don't get to organize, avoid that conversation. And in all those moments, their agenda is all these things. And their friend comes up with, this is a fantastic idea. Let's do this. And your teenager knows that they really don't want to do that.
Right.
So you give them a yes. Yes affirms the connection. Yes, I heard you. Yes, I'm listening. Yes, I've received your thought. And I'd rather do something else. So it's empowering teenagers. Um, it's also, I've also begun to recognize that when a teenager exchanges part of their self, for the sake of a relationship, it would seem to me that it leaves them vulnerable to letting some asshole into their life in 10 years hence. If
Yes.
you do it once, you'll do it twice. And these teenagers with diminished self-worth, self-esteem, now they're 22, and someone who hot looking guy, hot looking gal, and they're attracted. And if they gave up pieces of themselves for a relationship when they're 16, I'm concerned they may do the same thing when they're 20, to
Mm.
let somebody into their life that
It
doesn't
becomes a
belong there.
pattern.
So there are these other ways this conversation can go, but a yes and it seems, that's another word, seems keeps us being stuck with a truth that it doesn't belong
Mhm.
because we tend to speak declaratively. It
Yes.
sounds to our listener that it's the truth. And it may be just a thought, an opinion, a conjecture, but our brain registers truth. And then we go to good, bad, right, wrong, agree or disagree. And if what I say to you doesn't match what you believe and tend to remember, we'll start arguing about whose truth is truer, whose reality is most real, who's right and who's wrong.
Mhm.
No communication, less listening. And for that, we need the word seems.
Mm.
Seems lets us bypass the truth app of good, bad, right, wrong, agree or disagree. So when you put yes, and seems together, you're in pretty good shape for communication.
Awesome.
Or so it seems.
You have a comment you have a comment,
Please.
question from Maria.
Yes, Maria.
Okay, thank you. So, what I'm discovering in this conversation, Paul, is it seems like when we say and, it opens up a whole world of possibility. Otherwise, it's going to cut off possibility and it could just be like doomsday. So, that's what I'm discovering.
Doomsday for the relationship. You know, I,
Exactly.
I talk to couples and their families. Just be clear, in our family, there is no room for no. In our family, when you come up to me, I'm busy making dinner, and I'll say no, you get to say and. If I forget to say the and, we are invited to add it to any conversation because in our family we have no room for no.
Hmm. Okay.
And uh, uh, yes,
Did you
and
say in your
seems.
family you have no room for no?
Well, if one slips out, Rita will say, and
That's awesome. What about people that have a hard time saying no? I mean, maybe I'm taking this to a completely different conversation, but I wonder if this conversation for people who are already overly agreeable and then they begin to resent their partner, is there a space for someone to say no? Absolutely no, we're not having Chinese again.
if what's at stake is the relationship, the future.
Okay.
So when someone gets into a no space, and you say, yes, and maybe this is a good thing for us to talk about. When shall we do that? With an and, you can steer the relationship. Don't, they say no. Or say, yeah, seems, but it's something we've not agreed upon. Can we take some time and talk about that?
And these language strategies that you're teaching, is it, tell me in a broader sense, what is it repairing or is it just helping to do better going forward? Like if people are struggling and there's a lot of resentment and hurt built up, which is what it sounds like to me we're talking about, do these strategies help to repair that? Or is that a different?
And the yes keeps us connected and
Okay.
listening, and lets us steer to the next place we want to go with. We don't, an and will break us up. An and will get us into an argument. And keeps us connected like dogs and cats, peanut butter and jelly. You
Mhm.
know, I'm in a book that I've read, you could say, well, I want to I want to go to the beach, but I haven't got the time.
Mhm.
But actually creates the space of problems. But means we've got a problem here. Is that I want to go to the beach and I haven't got the time. Different flavor.
Yes.
And uh, yes, and it seems is the curriculum I want to bring to a high school. In fact, my book, Marriage and Communication Recipes for Life, which may have been published since you and I are together, it's a series of recipes. It's a manual for any relationship. The first really the first recipe is yes. It's a yes and an and are the magic can openers of communication. With a yes and an and they're together, without it, you don't know where you'll wind up.
Mm. And do some folks find this extremely difficult to implement when you teach it?
It's the first thing I teach when they come. They come to me because they have to, and they come back because they get to. Another distinction I teach. Because we live in a world of I have to, I need to, I should, and I must.
Yes, yes, yes.
And when we listen quietly, you'll hear, or else. So essentially, we're living a life given by obligations and circumstances.
Mhm.
So they had to come. But by the time of the first 2 hour session, they get to come back.
Okay.
All we did was swap an O for an E, O for an E, and you get a get to life.
Yes.
Get to life, you have choice, freedom, possibility, opportunity. You can change your mind for any reason whatsoever because there's no or else.
Yes.
All we do is swap two vowels from a got to life to a get to life.
I love that mindset for the mornings.
I
Instead
get
of
to,
I've got to get up, I get to get up one more day.
which is easier. I have to go shopping. I get to go shopping.
Yeah.
And
Well,
our
how you
children,
feel about shopping.
yeah, well, it's easier to get to go shopping as an opportunity rather than have to go shopping as an obligation.
Yes. I love that.
These little tweaks, in our family, I encourage my couples to tell their children, there's nothing we have to do. They go, what? We get to do it. We're a family. We're a community. Someone gets to pick up the dog poop. Somebody gets to shop, to clean the bathroom. Someone gets to bring the money and to buy the car, to buy the money for the gas. Our family is an opportunity. And I
Mhm.
also point out that children, basically optimists, they come into the world excited to be alive, the opportunity to play with my toys, have my breakfast, be with my friends, visit grandma. And somehow in the first 10 years, we turn their excited get tos to have tos. You have to brush your teeth, have to get out to meet the bus, and then they become kind of a version of us. And I point out, listen, get to parents raise get to children who one day will be get to adults. That's
Mhm.
the way.
Lovely. Looks like you have a question from Chase. Good morning, Chase. I'm so glad you're here.
Grand Rising, thank you so much for the conversation. It's really powerful. Um, I was thinking as I was listening to all this, which I love, and I definitely make sure that I use these in my life all the time. So it's that right down my avenue. My question is, can you remember a time when you dealt with somebody that may be a little bit over the top, curmudgeon, or stuck in their story, where these words caused you to use another word? Like they were like, nope, I'm not going for that. Sorry, I'm out. Or said something that stirred you in another direction
Right.
because,
And how should we handle this? Throw the ball back to them.
hmm
Um, I'm slowly moving to the world of corporate, because if your employee brings their marriage to work, it costs you performance and productivity.
right,
And if the manager says, these are the new policies for our company, and you could be silent or say, yes, and I'm not sure about the third thing. Could you say some more about that?
hmm,
Yes,
yeah,
and it include will be the enhance the productivity and the performance of the work you do. Because if you have to go to work, 10% of you is on a beach somewhere fishing. So you're really not all there.
right.
And you can tell. Sometimes I use words, how it sort of seems that in your perspective, what is the direction be appropriate for our team? Um, um, there have been occasional couples. He came with her, assuming that I would help her follow his directions. Well, when he figured out it wasn't, he walked out. So there are a few stuck points, but another way of putting it is that you don't let anybody hijack your reality longer than it takes to say yes.
Mhm.
You should
That's a
vote
powerful
for,
sentence.
you should do this. This is the right way to do it. This is the only way to do it. This is God's choice. This is God's directions. And you go, and can we look at that together?
I like what you're saying. I think it's powerful. You just said should, and to me, that many times is the kryptonite word. When someone says, well, "Yeah, well, so, but you should,"
Oh, yeah.
and you're like, "What? What do you mean I should?"
Well, I invite them to switch a should for a could. Could is actually factual. We could go right. We could go left. But he said, you should. The president should. Democrats have to. Republicans need to. As a nation, we must.
Right, right.
When we use should language, it kind of takes a bite out of us.
Oh, I agree 100%. I was speaking to you as to how to navigate that, and sometimes because I've heard it multiple times, and
Oh,
I'm
good.
pretty good at going in another direction like 80% of the time. It's just sometimes people are stuck in their story and I have to pivot and exit stage left because I'm not there to save that.
Start
I
with
like that.
yes, and is there another way we could achieve the same end? Again, invoking thought,
Right.
invoking future. Yeah, I get it. Many people say we should, and it seems to be that we hear that a lot. And is there another way we could create a future together? Is there any room for, would we have any wiggle room, any way to look at it? Where we don't pay the price of shoulding on ourselves. That's one of the things we
That's it. That's what I'm talking
Right.
about. Like what I've read.
should, again, constricts the future.
Oh, definitely.
As if there's in a should world, there's only one or two alternatives, and that's all.
Correct.
But when you and I live in a world of, well, we could, you know, I have so many more things to say on
We
language,
have
maybe the next
another
time.
question, though, and we're
Thank you.
running short on time. We have a question from Maria. Thank you
Okay.
again so much.
Okay, thank you. So, Chase, as I was listening to you, I realized that it's all a practice. And I have been practicing this recently, and I've been practicing with friends. And when I get a curmudgeon or someone who is resisting, all I say is, you know what? It's just a practice. Let's play like it's a game and test the waters and see what happens. And then all of a sudden, the conversation is flowing, possibility is there, there's an aliveness, and it's all that and then some. So I just wanted to add that to the mix.
I would add the word invite. You could say, let's talk about our finances, or you could say, yes, and I invite us to talk about our finances.
Mm, mhm.
One, which is the strongest opening to the future? It invites freedom. It means you have a
Okay.
choice. I invite us
Mhm.
instead of a we should. We should doesn't invite choice. It's kind of putting your thumb on the scales. I invite us to consider sitting down, working on a Sunday, putting things in time is important, where we get to um, discuss our finances and the direction we want our family to go.
I love that. Yeah. So instead of let's practice, it's I invite us to practice and let's see what happens and
You
test the
hear the
waters.
difference? I
I do.
invite
Oh
us. It's
yeah,
exciting.
it's uplifting. Thank you, Paul.
Uh,
And thank you, Chase.
I invite us to pick a time that works for both of us, and we will get to discuss these things and arrive at a resolution that works for all of us. I invite.
Yes. And do you have any final words of wisdom for our Daily Huddle family?
Practice putting yes and at the beginning of pretty much anything you say from now on. How about breakfast? Yes, and how about scrambled eggs? Or perhaps you're a real estate agent, someone's $100,000 house in $1 million neighborhood. You say, yes. Well, look at the options. You'll spot the one that's good for you. Yes, start really. It's a little bit awkward in the beginning, but I would get the vast majority of our sentence could easily start with yes.
Mhm.
And we'll arrive at a completely altered destination a sentence that begins with yes is far stronger than a sentence that doesn't. Let's leave it there. And
Absolutely.
of course, then there's my book, Marriage and Communication, Recipes for Life. It's a manual. It's a cookbook. Pick the recipe, follow directions, get the cake. Only the cake is your life. I look
Fantastic.
forward to anybody who reaches out.
Yeah, I was going to ask you before I sign us off, how could people best reach you?
Marriageandcommunication.com.
All right. Well, that's easy, but I'm going to put it in the chat anyway.
And of course, I use marriage and communication a lot because people come to me with marriages but no communication.
Marriage and A&D communication.
And let's take a look at it together. And let's take a step back and see what works for us and our children or our enterprise. And
I love it.
it creates future in 3 letters.
Lovely. Thank you so much for jumping in here with us today. It sounds like we have a really grateful audience that has learned a lot from you, and I'm sure the people who watch this recording will learn more. And I hope that I can leave us feeling a little bit more inspired thanks to your generous sharing this morning, Paul. And I want to remind you all of the tenets of the Daily Huddle, and that is to love and remember to give And remember to laugh and throw that head back and let those endorphins fly. Help yourself to stress less by eating more plants, drinking more water, getting your sleep, and getting your exercise. Thank you all so much for being here on the Daily Huddle. Until next time.